I got about 10 minutes just as he was winding up because I completely forgot to set my alarm. Just slept through. There we go. Talking to teenagers. Morning. Right, done.
Luca did call you during his call, and you didn't respond. So I was a bit surprised, but now I realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I was still brushing my teeth and. Yeah. But thanks for putting almost putting the link up, Paul. I think you typed that into the chat, didn't you? It's just Fluid. Search for Fluid.
Yeah.
I'll tell everyone in case that happens again. The shortcut link for Fluid Pool or for this call is dsc.gg, as in discord.gg /fluid7, and that gets you in. It's like a permanent invite. I'll put it into the chat as well.
Yeah, if you could put like a text message, then it will be easier, Jonathan. Oh yeah, got it.
There we go.
Thank you.
But yeah, anything that Luca picked up that earlier on that I didn't catch? He always goes over some interesting stuff. It was a bit of I heard from
about Solano. That looks a bit wobbly.
Yes, that was a bit I caught at the end. Yeah, Solana's not too healthy at the moment. Never has been, it seems like. It's, venture capital backed, therefore behavior is not. It seems anything that's got full venture capital backing just doesn't behave as it should, because they're beholden to somebody who's pressured about money rather than performance, and that seems to be their issue. And their team, yes, says, as I understand it, their team is a little questionable because someone seems to have absorbed seed phrases from their Phantom wallet, which doesn't get transmitted, but is available to someone inside the team in plain text format. So somebody in the team had harvested a load of wallet addresses and then siphoned off the funds, which is, I mean, just about the worst thing that could happen. If you can't trust the builders of the wallet itself to behave correctly, and if the code allows them to, then that's got to be the result, which is not great. And of course, they do keep having to reboot every now and then, so it doesn't help their cause either. Cardano, on the other hand, has had zero downtime. It hasn't been entirely free of glitches, though. Interestingly, this work on the Vassal hard fork, which is coming up, is the most complex development of Cardano to date, everyone's saying. So this code release will be the most complex. The transition from one version of the node to the next is tricky, and that's why there's been this couple of delays now. The schedule's been pushed back, and in fact at one point some code was released and signed off as good for mainnet, which is version 1.35.0 of the node that was put onto mainnet. So Luca was talking about the activity, the code commit activity, GitHub commits, and that's what I'm kind of describing here. Once a bit of software that will replace what's currently in the blockchain has been written, it gets pushed up to Git if it's open source, and GitHub if it's open source. There are closed source versions of Git, like I use one for my business, but on GitHub most of the repos are open source, so anyone can go in and see them, and Cardano's is. So then that code gets put onto the mainnet of the blockchain, and that means that everybody starts adopting and using that code. However, this was released too early because they found a conflict between version 1.35 of the node and version 1.34, which resulted in forks of the chain happening. So you've probably heard about forks on other chains. It's never really been an issue on Cardano before. It's where two nodes, so two stake pools effectively, who validate transactions and verify that the blocks that they're receiving are the latest and accepted version of the chain. When two stake pools decide that they can't agree on that, they fork the network. So you have one chain growing, people putting things on that one, and another chain growing, people putting things on that one, and eventually there's a conflict and one of them gets thrown away, and so there's a load of transactions that get wound back. So no financial occurrences, just that some people who've put transactions in suddenly have them returned without being validated, which is an inconvenience. It's an annoyance on Cardano, but you don't get charged a fee for that. You just don't have your transaction accepted early. And so that started happening because 1.35 and 1.34 of the nodes decided they didn't like the versions of the nodes that the other was producing. In fact, it was 1.34 didn't like the versions of the chain that 1.35 was producing, and so it was forking the chains, and then one of them would win out, and transactions would be wound back. And that happens. So, like Ethereum Classic and Ethereum, they ended up actually splitting to the extent that half the chain carried on using Ethereum Classic and half went on to Ethereum, the latest version. And they still both exist now, so that's like a long-standing fork of the chain. In Cardano, these are like micro forks where one of the forks gets thrown away. But that was happening on mainnet too often, and it was because we were running a version of the node too early. So some people, there was no official release that everybody said they could use it. However, it was whitelisted as good code. There's a slight philosophical difference between those two statuses, and the code has started to be used by some node operators, but then the message came out that everybody should not use 1.35 on mainnet yet, so we had to roll back. So that's the extent of Cardano's issues, basically. Some developers did things a little prematurely, and some people had their transactions returned to them, and that's as bad as it gets, which is phenomenal.
Just a question on that, guys, and obviously, like you said, Ethereum are basically working on two separate nodes. Can they basically ultimately join them back together at some stage?
They, in theory, they could. So one fork would have to be have its code changes that differed from the other fork removed, and then it would have to adopt all the latest changes in that other fork. So it would have to discard its changes and accept the other ones, and then effectively that become the same code set, and then those two chains would be producing exactly the same blocks, and so those could come together again, and transactions could start happening between those two. But that's very unlikely now because they've both got different feature sets, slightly different ways of working.
So you would ultimately discard, like you already said, discard one of those nodes transactions.
Well, so if the both chains started adopting the same code base, and they both had this shared history, then yeah, I guess the transactions that happened on the code bases when they differed would not, you couldn't go back to those, so that would effectively break the chain. So it would have to be a third fork to bring the chains together, running on the same code base again, and then their histories would just lie independently of each other, something like that. But it'd be pointless. Effectively, you'd be better off just getting everyone to adopt one of the chains, whichever was preferred.
Congrats on the whale's arrival.
The pool's done remarkably well. So I don't know if everybody else seen yet, But the what they called XSPO Alliance, which we are currently in the rotation for, meaning that everybody who's in that alliance is in the rotation cycle has delegated their ADA to the fluid pool. And so last week we had 90,000. Well, there's a friendly whale who doesn't actually accept earnings from the rotation, but does join the rotation every now and then. So he was started staking with some XSPO pools a while back, and he disappeared for the last round. But this time he's back, and so suddenly our pool has been filled to the brim with the whales reward. I mean, it's not to the brim, but we've got 918,000 ADA staked to the pool at the moment. So if I go in and share screen, you can see pool.pms, which is phenomenal. It means a whole load to us, because instead of us minting a block every 1 in 10 with 900,000 ADA, we should mint one almost every epoch. So we haven't had a block assigned last epoch or this one, but I would expect us to get one in the next, or certainly in the next 2 after that. So that means we'll be getting more rewards, which is great. Actual tangible rewards. Now they'll won't be as large as the ones that we have minted in the past, because the larger your pool is, then the more frequently you mint blocks, then the smaller those blocks are. So it averages out across the whole year, is the way that the maths tries to work. But it does mean that we'll be getting more regular rewards, which is cool. Now the rotation is only with us for 4 epochs in total, so that's 20 days. So they'll be there for the this epoch and the next 3, and then we'll be rewarded for the final block an epoch after that. And so somewhere in that 5th epoch, there will these XSPO delegators will rotate over to the next pool. So 20 days will be looking pretty, and then it'll all go back to normal again after that. But even still, very grateful for it happening right now, because it's a really big encouragement to have blocks produced. Makes your pool look like a good operator, and we're more likely to attract delegation. So now's a really good time to spread the word about Fluid Pool, try and get it out there.
Jonathan, I have a question about the voting thing that happened yesterday, in that I think I did some preparation work for it, but then being not familiar and with all of this sort of thing, I didn't do anything with it while I was out and about yesterday, because I wasn't confident in just doing things on the go, so to speak. Is there anything to explain with that? And I noticed that it's still the 11th of August now that we wait for something else. So what happened? Was I in it unintentionally because I did some prep work before, and I did have a wallet staked, which I think is my Fluid 7 one.
So it depends how far
now?
down you got. Yeah. So if you're staked, delegated to a Cardano native stake pool, so like Fluid Pool, then you're eligible to register for voting, and that's if you've got more than 500 ADA or 500 ADA in your wallet, then it counts as a vote. Before the snapshot is taken, which is what the deadline was for yesterday, you needed to have obtained a QR code from your wallet and use that to register the voting app. So if you got as far as installing the voting app on your mobile device and then scanning the QR code, then you'll be registered. And so you've done everything you need to.
So when I opened my app this morning to check what had happened, it says registration in progress. It has a wallet connected, and then it's just telling me the important dates of the snapshot from yesterday, and then the voting starts on August the 11th. So did I inadvertently, because I did this before, prepared for this?
Yes, sounds like it. Sounds like you're all good to go. So if it tells you in your wallet that you are registered, and the registration rolls on fund to fund now. So I think if you've been registered since Fund 4, you'll still be registered for forthcoming event funds. So yeah, it sounds like you're all good to go. So it will just depend how much ADA you had in your wallet when the snapshot was taken at 11 a.m. UTC yesterday. Will now be your voting power that shows up in the app on the 11th. And from the 11th, we can then choose the projects that we want to cast our vote with from the app itself.
Okay. So then I saw some messages between you and Paul about 2 different wallets and logging in from here and logging in from there. Is there anything to know for the future then? Like the next fund, I assume, or there'll be another voting opportunity at some point where maybe we can be prepared for as we learn as we go.
Yeah, so the fund is every 3 months effectively, although it's got a 2-week break in between there as well. And so yeah, every fund you can vote, you can participate. When you vote, you cast a single vote, then you get rewarded for it. So it's worth doing, just as another way of accruing more ADA. But your real intention in voting is to try and guide the direction that things are developed in the Cardano ecosystem. So if you have a desire to see mission-driven impact projects take the lead in Cardano, then you can vote for those. If you want to have technically proficient projects funded, you can vote for those. If you're desperate to see a loan provider on Cardano, then vote for those, that sort of thing. And to maximize your voting power, you gather the easiest way is to gather all your ADA into a single wallet that is registered to vote, and then use that. Make sure that that ADA is in there for the voting snapshot, and that maximizes your vote power.
If you don't want to, is that what you have to do? Do you have to consolidate into one wallet at the point of voting to maximize, or can you each wallet vote?
You can vote with any wallet. So if you've registered with different wallets, then you can just leave the ADA in there and vote with those 3. The downside, which is what I was explaining to Paul, is that you've only got 3 voting wallets. Each of those, if you're voting for one project, you'll have to vote 3 times with each of those wallets to maximize your vote power. So if you've got 100 projects that you want to vote for, which I can now get up to quite easily, then that means I've got to cast 300 votes using 3 different wallets, which is a pain, because if you've only got one mobile device, then you cast your votes in the app, select all the ones you want, vote for those, then you have to reset the app, load in the QR code from your other wallet, select all those 100 projects again, vote for those. And so you do that 3 times, and by the end of it, you're ready to bang your head against the wall. So yeah, if you just get it into one wallet and vote with all that, then that's a simpler way of doing it.
Like your message says, put it all in one wallet, the maximum benefit, voting power, and then, but it doesn't actually matter reward, the 2 things, the reward side, if you take the time to do 3 different wallets across 100 different projects or whatever, you're going to get the same rewards as if you were putting all your power or all your ADA behind one thing. So the rewards are the one, like you say, it's nice to get something just because, but it's more about the power, the balances that are in 500 plus that are in the wallet to vote for the initiative that you're wanting to vote for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So even if you vote with a tiny amount or a large amount, you get the same. You're subject to the same reward mechanisms. But
And that's where you're pointing out that there's the administratively, if you only have one project, or at the time that you want to support, just put all your ADA in the one wallet, vote, have the snapshot, and then disperse your money back to where it was.
yeah, and that's what I do. So I've got a business wallet and my personal wallet and the stake pool wallet, and I want to accrue all my voting power together, but I can't do that because it just complicates things too much. So I just do my own personal wallets into one. I have my business one that I vote with, and I have the stake pool that I vote with, and that's yeah.
Just on that, Jonathan, the only reason I left them as two different wallets is obviously if you take the bulk of the funds, like a couple of thousand ADA, and move it into the other one, do you not lose like some of the delegation rewards that you would get?
So the same process applies for your voting snapshot as so that's a model of what happens with your delegation snapshot. So in fact, at the start of each epoch, your wallet that is staked, however much is in it is snapshotted, and then that is the proportion of the rewards that you'll earn from that pool after that epoch. So you're at the start of the epoch, snapshot's taken, and then for the rest of that epoch you could move your ADA around, spend it, earn more, spend it elsewhere, and put it back to the same amount in the wallet for the start of the next epoch, and there'll be no change, no impact in your delegation rewards. So it's a similar thing to the voting snapshot. So the voting snapshot counts partway through an epoch, versus the delegation one at the start. So if you were being really trying to maximize everything, then you would leave everything in your separate delegated wallets to keep those rewards going, and then so it's like 9:45 UTC on the Wednesday, the epoch ticks over on mainnet, and so from that point you can then aggregate all your ADA into a single wallet, and the voting snapshot for the vote happens at 11 UTC following. So you've got between 9:45 and PM and 11 AM to move all your ADA together. That's voting snapshots then taken, and then you've got another 4 days to be able to distribute your ADA back how you want it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So if you're really trying to maximize your return but stay staked to a pool, what you could do if you were feeling brave is after the delegation snapshot at the start of the epoch, you could then take your ADA out of that pool and put it onto a liquidity provider or into a smart contract platform like a DEX, earn your interest there as well, and then get it back into the pool before the next snapshot to double up on your yield. So you get your staking reward as well as your liquidity provider reward, or your yield farming, or whatever you want to get into. But yeah, the reality is that's far too much work for someone unless they're a real-time trader. And in fact, with some of the smart contracts, you can stay delegated. Sorry, not some of the smart contracts. Some of the ways, some of the platforms have ways of using native scripts to run their liquidity or additional earning rewards. I can't think of the one that should be coming to mind at the moment. But yeah, there's built into Cardano again, because it was built like Luca was saying, it was built after Ethereum. It's dealt with a whole load of these concepts, these issues that Ethereum came up against. So there's what called native scripts built into Cardano, and that's what allows us to have like first world natives on Cardano. So they're operating from the core, the Cardano native code base, but they're giving us a whole load of functionality that you have to really use a smart contract for in Ethereum. So all the NFT stuff on Cardano is actually a native script, so it's written from the same team that wrote Cardano itself. It doesn't veer from that, so you're not relying on third-party code having been audited by external teams and so forth. You're actually running your NFT is as safe and secure and operates in the same way as ADA itself. And so there are native scripts as well that are a part of the core blockchain, and they can offer additional abilities like delegated stake. So that the one I'm thinking of is Eternal Wallet. So in Eternal Wallet, they have this staking vault thing, where if you in fact, I'll get it up on screen so you can have a look too.
I've used it. I think I've got about 4 ADA over 12 epoch, I think.
Are you seeing that now on the screen share?
No.
Is it showing my browser, or is it showing Discord still?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so so you've got staking, which is to choose any stake pool to stake with, and then they've introduced this staking vault thing, which is purple, and so this is using native scripts to actually do the staking. So instead of staking directly with a pool, you're putting you're delegating your stake into a native script, and that native script then delegates to the Eternal Wallet pool. And the way the reason they're doing that is because the script itself is able to become the pledge on that stake pool. So like with a normal pool like mine, I have to put all the pledge in, and if you want to join me in putting pledge into the pool, then you have to actually give the ADA to me, and then I can put it into the pool. And so you're having to trust me that I will pay you the rewards from that pledge amount, and that I give it back to you if you ask for it. With Staking Vault and Eternal, you're in control of the ADA, but you've put it into a smart contract, and so the smart contract's on chain, so you know exactly what it's doing, and it's not a smart contract, it's a native script, but it is then Eternal Wallet can actually use that the ADA that's in that native script to be the pledge on their pool, and so they can aggregate all the ADA holdings that people have given them into that native script into their pledge, and there's an additional pledge reward. So the larger your pledge, it gives you slightly better chance of greater returns on your ADA. So 100% pledged pool, so that's 63 million ADA in a pool, all as pledge, will return a higher percentage yield than normal staking. So Eternal Wallet have done that as an incentive to get people to stake their ADA with them, because they're obviously putting a load of work into this wallet. It's the best one in the ecosystem, and they need paying for it. And so instead of asking people to pay directly, they're asking them to stake with that staking vault, and in return they get a slightly like a 1% higher yield on their delegation. So it's a very good way of doing it, and really only a wallet could encourage that number of people to delegate. And I don't actually know how much they've managed to get together, but I'm sure they're doing well out of it. So that's and that is a trustworthy way of doing it. Your ADA can be taken out of that contract at any time, that script at any time, and returns to the normal staking methods.
It's actually locked, Jonathan. There's locked for certain periods of epoch. I think the shortest was 12. I couldn't put my header out.
Right. Yes. So yeah, that is the difference with the native script, is that it's got lock-in periods, whereas native pools are just 5 days. Whereas, so is it 12 epochs it's locked for? Did you say?
Yeah, that was a minimum up to, I think it went up to 60.
Okay. Yeah. So your minimum is 12, maximum of 36. It looks like.
Yeah. 36.
So effectively, you're locking your ADA in. You're getting a higher rate of return, but in the meantime, you can't spend it. You just have to withdraw it from that script to be able to spend it again. Whereas if it's on a normal pool, you can spend it at any time, and yeah, your rewards are calculated every 5 days. But this native script that they're doing is it's not something they've written themselves. It's just something that they've adopted from the core Cardano feature set, which is very cool, just like NFTs. So it can be trusted. You're not relying on third-party code. You're not worried about it being siphoned off in a hack, because it's been, it's as trustworthy as Cardano itself, which is very cool. So yeah, it just shows you that the abilities within Cardano, and the reason that it's late on everything is because they've thought this stuff through in the beginning, and they've worked hard at making sure that you can get these sorts of features without having to rely on third-party code to the same extent. However, saying that, the largest, biggest, most painful thing that's happened on Cardano so far has actually come through from collaborating with other chains. So this last week or so, I don't know if anybody's heard, but Wing Riders, which is a DEX decentralized exchange that I've talked about on here before, they're a good team technically, and they made all the best choices in terms of building out their platform. But their goal, the functionality that they offer, is that they allow you to move your tokens from another chain onto a bridge, and from there onto the Cardano network. So effectively, it's a way of holding USDC or Ethereum and actually operating them on the Cardano blockchain, so only paying Cardano's very cheap fees. Which is a very good thing, and lots of people want to do that because lots of people hold Ethereum and USDC, etc., etc. And it's a way for getting a stablecoin on Cardano as a first instance. But they've used this bridge, they've developed this bridge, and the underlying technology on that bridge this last week has turned out to be susceptible to a hack. So the Nomad bridge, as it's called, has been around for a long time. It was vetted, audited heavily back when Wing Riders were making the decision to use it. So that was before September last year, and at that point, the code was solid. There were no vulnerabilities. The audit teams all went through it, but you were building in reliance on that Nomad architecture into the Wing Riders platform, and the team behind Nomad subsequently added in a new feature. So they wrote the code as normal. It's the same guys doing a good job, but within it there was a misguided developer mistake in there, which meant that if it's technical, and I don't fully understand it because I'm not a Solidity developer, but if you are writing a reference to start a transaction build, you can write it as all zeros in Solidity, and if a transaction is submitted to the blockchain with all zeros in that original signing place, then it should be discarded or written, or results should be false. But in fact, for some reason, on these ones in the Nomad, they're given a state of true, and so anybody could then create a zero sign transaction that spoofed a real transaction, and move the funds on from that point. And so that's how the leak was found, and exploited. And so $190 million worth of assets were sucked from the Nomad bridge, including those used by Wing Rider's team in their bridge. So effectively, people on Cardano network who had bridged tokens over from other chains, from Ethereum, they lost these, whatever was backing those assets, because the bridge holds those assets, and if you move them from the Cardano back to Ethereum and Ethereum back to Cardano, the assets are tied up in the bridge in the meantime. The equivalent assets are tied up on the bridge for the other side of that relationship. And so if the underlying assets that's sitting on the bridge have their value swept away, spent effectively, like in this hack, then their value drops to zero and you've lost your cash. So that's what happened. So Cardano, with a good intention of being interoperable with other chains, has been subject to a vulnerability from another chain. And that's the risk you take when you deal in anything, even on Cardano, that is not native Cardano. So when you're deciding to work with Sunday Swap or Muesli or Min or any of these, perfectly operating exchanges up to date, then you're taking on an additional level of risk because you're using third-party code that's not IOG or Emergo or these guys who wrote the chain to begin with. So you're relying on third-party teams, which will be smaller and may have different agendas. All the teams so far within have had good intentions. Then if you take it a step further and you're actually working with teams who are building interoperability with other chains like Milkomeda or Wing Riders, then you're adopting more code, relying on more code that's coming from more people, more parties. And so you're increasing your exposure and hence increasing your risk. And so the chances of becoming vulnerable to an exploit grow. So as you are, and there are greater rewards out there for you. So that's you again having to play your reward risk ratio, and the decisions you make, and how long you expose yourself to those risks are all part of being a good investor. So yeah, I spoke about Wing Riders. I still rate them as a good team, still rate their offerings as good, but it doesn't mean you're safe and secure by listening to my advice, which isn't advice, it's opinion, or from anybody else. Nobody knows 100% in this ecosystem yet what is secure and robust and what's not. So yeah, if you're on a centralized exchange, if you're using decentralized exchanges, you are exposed to risks. The most safe places. Go on.
2 questions. One, do you think these people will get their tokens back? And I'm pretty sure that Luca was talking also about the Harmony Bridge as well. That also, I believe, got hacked as well.
I haven't even heard about that one.
I think it was maybe a month or 2 ago. I think it was on the Ethereum network. I'm sure you made mention of it.
Yeah, actually, that does ring a bell. Yes, and in fact, so there was a lot of a lot of the value was returned to the people who'd lost out on the Harmony Bridge. I remember reading that now. On the Nomad bridge failure, then I think there's been rumors that they've managed to return or get back a proportion of it. Nobody knows exactly how much yet, and whether that's going to be distributed to people who've lost out or how much will be. But I think there's some steps have been made to recover it. So they may get some of it back, but it seems unlikely to be able to get it all back, because $190 million is a lot of money to any robber's going to want to keep some of that. So yeah, that's the risk.
But can they actually spend it though? Well, I suppose it's clean once they've got their hands on it. It's clean funds, isn't it?
So it's traceable.
Yeah. Okay.
So if law enforcement is involved and trying to track them down, and they spend it, then it's another sort of fingerprint on their behavior, on their actions. So it gives the investigators another data point to try and figure out who these people are, how they operate, where they are, and that sort of thing. So the less activity stolen funds make or do, then the less information there is for investigators to work on. The smaller transactions that happen, the more that happen, the patterns of what's being spent where, who's benefiting from those transactions is an indicator of who's done the theft in the first place. And so that's the issue that the thieves have, is that they have got a load of money that they're sitting on, but spending it is difficult still because everything's traceable to a large extent, and so you're giving clues away about who you are when you're spending it. And it will always be looked at now. Those funds will be looked at and try to be tracked to figure out who the original perpetrators were, and then they'll be held accountable. But there are very successful robbers in the world. Let's not fool ourselves. We get away with it. So the same thing can happen in crypto. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff. It's a wake-up call to be careful. I was going to look up the harmony, wasn't I? Any other questions? Any particular things you want to look at today, or tasks you want to get done?
Jonathan, I tried to buy some tokens on Loxia. I think you said last time, but I think it says like the sale has already ended, so we can buy any token on that.
Oh, has it? Did it? I knew it was closing soon. They'd said at the end of the month, I think. So did you not get to it before the end of July?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Right.
So we can't do more then. Yeah.
Yeah. That. What do they call it? The revenue share token has ended now, so you can't get hold of that. But they. Yeah, I can't remember. I'll find the link and have a look at it again. They are still operating, and they are still in need of cash, so they may do other fundraising opportunities. But I just can't.
I just clicked on that token link, and it does say the token sale has ended.
Okay.
Oh, these are these things that you put on your to-do list, and then you don't get round to doing them before you should do them.
Yeah, I found out. Yeah, so again, it's a brutal space that moves very quickly, and opportunities come up and don't hang around for long. However, there are lots of opportunities, which is a good thing. So, don't ever have regret over missing out on an opportunity, because chances are it will fall through and not turn into anything good anyway. But if you miss out one time and they offer another one later, then it's a sign that they're around still, they're operating, that the next opportunity could be a good one. So I'd keep an eye on them. And with anything, tokens do end up on the secondary market, so you could buy them later if you still like them, if you still like to get hold of some. I don't know if they're actually on any of the exchanges yet.
And is it the same thing with the Enrico as well?
NMaker you can only buy from the secondary market now, yes. But that is it's like buying ADA now at this point. It's been around for a little while. The value has dropped, and it's now sort of just tracking along with the decent tokens out there. In fact, it's performing better than most out there. So you could still just buy that on an exchange, and if you want to add it to your portfolio, my opinion that it's still good to get hold of at this price, because I think it's going to do better.
Sure. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah. So
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Luca mentioned something in the news, and I just want to understand. I might have a completely wrong understanding of this, but he said he showed us something to do with the land. What was it? There was land use in Colorado, and he was talking about a dispute, and I didn't get the link for the news, but he's sort of referring to the assumption that people have that earning, on the blockchain is not eco-friendly, but that actually it can be eco-friendly, or it can be neutral, carbon neutral, whatever it is. So this company the oil company was using what they considered was their gas waste, so to speak. That's how I interpreted it, as using that towards running something on the blockchain or the nodes, and that's where my understanding is a bit sketchy. In that, how does that work? And is it something that I could keep in mind to have like waste? Okay. How do you use energy?
Yeah.
Or the blockchain?
Yeah. So I imagine it's Bitcoin. Sounds like Paul said as well. So the proof of work chains out there, they use compute power to validate transactions, whereas proof of stake, you're using different computations, and it's based around the stake pool operators having gathered trust. People's stake with them because they trust them, and so that's how this consensus mechanism is designed. The proof of work consensus mechanisms all are around compute power, and so that requires a load of energy. So that's why Bitcoin uses 20,000 times more energy than Cardano, for example. What the advantages that you get with the proof of work blockchain are still valid. So if you don't want to involve people, trusting people and delegating stake to them, then proof of work is your only real alternative that's been proven to work. So it's a very, Bitcoin is a very good asset. It's it's stood the test of time. Its value is always increasing. So people still want to use it, but we know it uses a lot of energy. So companies out there are finding ways to use waste energy and things like that to power their mining rigs, which keeps them as eco-friendly. It's in the detail is sketchy on some of the projects out there that claim to be eco-friendly Bitcoin houses. But for example, Bukele, in the president, I don't know what he is, of El Salvador, he's committed a whole load of national resource to building out geothermal-based mining centers. So they'll be using geothermal energy from their volcanoes to actually power their mining rigs. And because Bitcoin has been accepted as a valid national currency, then they can actually offset all the energy they're using to mine just by generating it in a 100% sustainable way through geothermal energy. And so their national currency then isn't an eco impact. It's a legitimate token that probably uses less energy than our fiat money, because we still have to print our dollars and gather metals to make coins. So actually, if you replace that with Bitcoin that is powered by geothermal,
So is there an opportunity for individuals or small companies? And how's that related to, so the thoughts that are going through my head are like that RSV stake pool that is solar powered,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the fact that they are almost, so they're staking and investing, they're earning money or by running nodes, you know, through a company. And is there opportunity for other people, like if I'm looking at the distillery and is it limited to specific type of energy like solar energy or geothermal, or could things like heat energy be used for things like this? Or is that only for like specific things or big governments, companies?
Yeah, no, I mean, it depends on the power requirements and your access to sustainable energy. Really, like the stake pool, a proof of stake stake pool uses very little energy, but it still does require energy. So RSV pool, which we've talked about before, they use solar power. They've got solar panels that generate enough electricity, and they've got battery storage that's enough to actually sustain and run their pools completely carbon neutral. So they're using solar to power their stake pool operation. So when you're staking with them, you're effectively not having an impact on the environment. However, a distillery would use a lot more energy than a proof of stake pool would. So you'll have to find more than solar energy to be able to run your distillery, I'm pretty sure.
No, what I'm thinking about is like the waste energy. So I'm just exploring how the distillery could be more eco-friendly, being what it is, and you know, and discussing sort of low carbon energy grant fundings and those sorts of things. And we're going to be generating a lot of heat with the boiler, and that, you know, one of the options could be to have some sort of piping system where the heat could be gathered, and so that you don't have to have gas central heating or electric heating in the office area or something, because you've diverted your heat energy. And then when Luca talked about this Dan Colorado thing, and I was like, oh, what's that? It's not necessarily to run distillery, it's rather to use what's coming out of the distillery in a eco-friendly way. And then now I'm thinking if this could also be pointed or put through a proof of work or proof of stake, if I'm, you know, whatever I'm trying to understand, is that not a way for the business to make an income basically from its waste energy as well?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a lot of upfront costs to turn. So I guess it's heat waste that you get out of your distillery.
That's the first thing I can identify as being something that's obvious. You know, like you're going to have botanical waste, which is something else. But yeah, the heat energy. You know, we have to use gas, which is not eco-friendly. But what could we do to reduce that carbon footprint with the heat that it's generated?
Yeah, I've got some ideas. Archie, you were going to say something?
Yes, Robin, waste heat recovery units you're talking about, but they're very, very expensive, because we did them, the kind of oil and gas projects that I worked on. We would actually use the heat that was, from the gas generators we used to, provide the power platforms, and then you recover the heat. But as Jonathan mentioned, it's that, it's expensive kit. And so you'd have to kind of do a cost benefit analysis to see if it was actually worth doing. But just Google waste heat recovery units and see what comes up.
Yeah, and I know that so Coventry, where I live, we've got our an incinerator that takes the waste and processes it, and we do heat recovery from that, and that's used to power to heat. It's piped into the centre of town, and it's used to heat all the council buildings, for example. So we've offset.
I missed that last bit where if Archie was talking.
Oh, you have to drop off. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, something happened. Everything went quiet.
I saw someone drop off, but I couldn't see who it was. Do you want to repeat it, Archie?
Yes, I was just saying about waste heat recovery units, Robin. You can Google those, but they are kind of expensive bits of equipment. And you were mentioning, Jonathan, about Coventry using waste heat. Shetland Island also does the same. They basically in the town of Lerwick. They actually use that waste heat to provide hot water to all of the occupants in the town, which is quite a good use again of waste energy. So
yeah, and in fact, Anna Marie, I don't know if you want to come up and speak about the stuff that you were looking at with the care home and the wood boiler. If you're not available to talk at the moment, I can probably remember bits of it. But there was an opportunity to buy a property that was near a care home, and care homes have very high demand for hot water because of all the laundry that they do, and obviously their heating tends to be higher than your average building. And so actually, if you've got something that does have a lot of waste heat, you can actually partner up with them, offer them the heating, and it becomes a self-sustaining cycle almost. And so the building that we were looking, this is my sister and her husband were looking at getting, they would use some of the land to actually run a wood boiler on it, and that takes wood chips, which are it depends on what quality you can get, but they tend to be a waste product that comes from manufacturing industry, and farms and woodlands are always having wood that they need to recycle and get out there. And if it's low grade stuff and just gets chipped, it either goes back into compost or it can actually be burnt now, and in an efficient wood boiler to produce electricity. And so the idea was actually they'd take the heat waste from that wood boiler as well as the electricity, and use electricity to power a residential property, and use the heat waste to run laundry and heating for care home. And so it's creating using these loops of technology to actually improve our carbon footprints on a smaller scale. It's getting possible to do it on a smaller and smaller scale all the time. And so thinking about that for your distilleries is worth doing, but the upfront costs are always much higher than just taking what comes out of the wall, unfortunately. But if you were setting up a distillery that had a high demand place next to it, maybe you can use them to help offset say we'll give you cheap electricity for or free heating for the next year if you'll contribute the equivalent bills to our startup costs to pay for the waste recovery, the heat recovery units, something like that. What could be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's very early stages, and even in my own understanding. But when I'm talking to these grant people that are trying to help with low carbon energy initiatives, some of them are like, you can't apply if you've already started on your development or paid for a deposit or something, then they can't help you with the funding, and others are like, if you haven't started yet, then we can't help you, if that makes sense. So there are some things where we're already along the way, like commissioning with the boiler and the still and things, but there's other things that we haven't even looked at yet. So it's trying to tie things in in all aspects of life. And then you have a Crypto Friday who talks about using energy as well, and you're like, oh, okay, so trying to tie all these sorts of opportunities or information together to achieve. you're trying to achieve, whether you're too late for something or not. Sometimes they can't all mesh together, but you don't know yet. You have to sort of explore it.
Exactly, yeah, and it's everything's a learning, and new bit of information here gives you a new opportunity somewhere else. I've always liked the idea of hydroelectric and geothermal, and I think that we're not exploiting that enough at all.
We are in New Zealand. Come to Rotorua.
Yeah,
Massive geothermal plants. Yeah, they're using it lots down there. Lots of geysers they pump around into the heating systems, into the spa pool. Yeah, so it's a massive industry.
Yeah, and that just makes so much sense to me, because you're not tapping, you're not burning something that's running out, or you have to put more energy into. It's like, if you're burning wood, you still have to plant more trees to make sure you've still got enough wood to burn down the road. But if you're just sitting on a thermal vent, why on earth would you not use all that energy that's being pumped into the atmosphere? So it's genius, very cool. And hydroelectric as well. Rain falls all the time. Why not capture it as it comes down a river and turn that into energy? Yeah, so good questions, good things to think about, and certainly opportunities come up. Definitely worth bringing, and we'll happily discuss them. Any other topics you want to think about? Did anybody have a look at the Empowa? That was the other token I talked about last week a little bit. They've got an NFT sale and a token sale going on at the moment. That's the real fi, they call it, when you're combining crypto with real world industries. So they're building houses in Mozambique at the moment, and looking to spread out across that region, and giving people homes and offering mortgages, all backed by crypto. And I've got a token sale and an NFT that will allow you to get discounts on their partner programs. They've got one with World Mobile that's started. And there was some, actually, I wanted to drop some of the videos from there, because there's interviews with their actual recipients of their first houses. They do some good interviews with them, talking about what their issues are in terms of getting hold of a house in the regions that they're in, how this opportunity differs from what else is available, the savings that they're making by taking part in it. And it really shows where crypto touches ground and transforms the finance industry for localized areas. It's really, really good. Actually, I'm going to jump to my other browser and see if I can find it there, because I've got it logged in there. Did anybody manage to have a look at the token or do any research on it?
Not myself. I haven't had the time, unfortunately.
Me neither, Jonathan. It's on my to-do list.
I don't think there's a deadline on this one, an imminent deadline on this one, so not a panic yet, but every opportunity does pass, as you've seen with Locks and Maker.
Yeah, I was interested. I never got around to looking at it either, but maybe just a note to self, or even in here, if there is a deadline date, maybe, like, I've taken down the notes about Empowa and what it does and the links, but if there is a date available to use, then that will help me get on with my to-do list as well. I prioritize what needs to be discussed first.
Yeah, I don't know when the NFT sale stops. I could look that up. That's probably the first opportunity to stop. Their token sale, they had an ISPO and a private token sale. We missed both of those, but they've got their token available on exchanges now, I think. Actually, none of these are the interviews, I thought.
On their website it says their EMP token sale has ended.
Yeah,
Is that the right thing?
that was a private sale. But that won't be the NFT. I think that's probably still available. So yeah, anyway, I'll drop the link to their YouTube channel, and you can. I can't see the exact video I was thinking about, but I'll put that on the chat so you can pick it up.
On the website, the NFT sale says that the 8th of August is the end of sale.
Okay.
That
Cool.
would be Monday.
So, a couple of days left on it. Does come around quickly. And the functionality on the token, at the moment, all they've talked about is this World Mobile opportunity. Oh no, my monitor's done that thing again where it's just gone black. Try again. So yeah, have a look at it if you think it's worth looking at. You had to get the NFT, you had to have 50 EMP, which is their native token. So you have to buy the EMP first and then buy their token. So it was 250 ADA and 50 EMP, which is not a cheap NFT, but I liked it because it's the money is going towards a cause that I like, and the NFT has some utility, which I think is good in your NFTs as well. If it actually has a discount it offers somewhere else, or functionality or access to a program that you don't have normally, then I prefer those NFTs to just pure art-based ones.
I've heard about World Mobile. Well, they're quite big, aren't they? Aren't they like involved with a lot of different things in Africa?
They're not huge yet, but they have got big ambitions, and they're a sort of startup a startup mobile provider. So their offering is going to be the telecoms infrastructure in developing nations is their sort of goal. So they've got a project running in Tanzania already, where they've taken existing technology, installed, put it together in innovative ways and got it working so that you've got an ether node or an air node, which is like a mast that you can put into a village that talks using line of sight telecoms communications to other nodes and hubs, which then get connected to the traditional telecoms networks in the country. And so that can then start to make use of satellite and undersea cables. So you're really connecting really small pockets of populations to the network, and doing it in a way that is revenue generating. So the people who buy the infrastructure are the locals. They'll put that mast in place and maintain it, and everybody who then uses the Wi-Fi to access the networks from there can pay them a little fee as part of their accessing the network. So it's like Virgin, but on a micro scale, because the operators of this whole World Mobile network will be little groups of entrepreneurs, and the larger scale infrastructure will be provided by World Mobile themselves, and that's where it connects to the national infrastructure, and they've got the licenses to be able to do that. But actually, the sort of endpoints of their network are being built out by little guys. So that's a really good approach, I think. And yeah, their aspirations are not just rural African pockets of population, but also starting to move into remote places in North America even. So yeah, they've got big aspirations. They're a top tier partner with IOG, and will probably end up having something to do with Dish Network, which is the third largest mobile provider in America, through the relationship with IOG, because Dish are a partner with IOG and Mobile Mile are a partner with IOG. So the whole problem with blockchain is that if your remit, which IOG's is to bank the unbanked, then you really need to connect the unconnected as well, which are your audience. So that's why they're partnered with these mobile companies to actually get the infrastructure built out for people who just don't have a connection, don't have the internet yet. And again, it's sort of real world technologies and infrastructure being built, powered and funded by crypto. Well, I can't seem to resurrect my screen like I managed to last time, so I'm just talking to you from the blackness. It's all I can see of you now, and I can't control anything. So, yeah. Any more questions that I can answer without having access to a computer? I'm willing to talk about. But if we're about winding up, we can draw it to a close.
Yeah, I've got nothing, Jonathan. I'm all tapped out.
Nothing from me either, Jonathan.
Okay. Well, I think we'll wind up there for the day then. Thanks for joining. Good to hear from you all and your contributions.
Yeah.
And yeah, I look forward to some good stake rewards for the next few epochs.
Awesome.
Yeah, have a look at Empowa.
Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah, I'll catch up with you next week.
Okay, thanks
All
very
right.
much, Jonathan.
See you all soon.
Everyone.
Bye
Have a
bye.
good weekend.
Bye.